Hey everybody, I am live on my show Funny Friends, and boy are you in for a treat today. I am Jeannie, are you?
Yeah.
Hey, okay, wait, I'm in Facebook Live. Stand by, people, just 1 second. This technology is killing me. Here we go. Going to
Patrick can see it all on his cell phone.
Okay, now we're in gallery view. Hey, Jeanne
Hey.
Robertson is with us, and oh my gosh, she is former Miss North Carolina. She's a YouTube sensation, and I am so happy to talk to you, Jeanne. How you doing in North Carolina?
I'm doing great. It's pouring down rain here. Now that Miss North Carolina was 56 years ago, but no one has milked it for more. So
you're still a beauty.
I'll have to tell everybody, did you say the clip wasn't going to work?
No, we were going to start the clip, Don't Send a Man to the Grocery Store, because that was your first viral video. And I know over 15 million people have seen the clip still. I was going to play it, but.
Okay. So it is not working, or it is, well, I mean.
It is not.
Okay. Well, I will tell everybody that I first became aware of you. We talk alike. We have the same accent. People say, did y'all grow up in the same place? But I first heard about you and I went to see you. I've seen your live on stage 2 places. And one was in Las Vegas at a casino, and you were great. And the other one was in Biloxi, Mississippi at the Beau Rivage at a casino. So I was just floored, and then we became friends, but we're both so busy we don't see each other that much. But you're terrific. I love your work. I really love your work.
Oh, Jeanne, you're so kind, and you are just, I am so impressed with how your career has, I mean, it's been the reverse of most people's career. Most comedians, there have been a lot of comedians who have turned into speakers. I mean, I do some speaking because I'm an ovarian cancer survivor, but the comedy was first. You started out as a speaker, and then now you're selling out theaters all over the country. Tell us about
we've been
that.
Lucky. Would you grab the phone, somebody? The same as your place.
Right.
Interestingly enough, I don't ever refer to myself as a comedian. It's because of where I started and what I did first. I was a professional speaker, so I was not working comedy clubs. I was a humorist,
Right.
and that let the meeting planners know that I would be funny, but that I would be family friendly. Because
Right.
the meeting planner's job is not to offend the people that pay their salary. And they bring in, and when I started so long ago, on television was, we'd seen some of Toady Fields, who was terrific and great. And then Joan London came along, but the other one was that talked about Fang all the time.
Phyllis Diller.
Phyllis Diller. So if I had said to a meeting planner that I want their corporate speak, I'm a comedian like Phyllis Diller, I wouldn't have gotten the work. And so I call myself a professional speaker who's a humorist. I've used the same, I use stories, I go, and I've only worked comedy clubs once in my life. So it's 2 different ways that I say we're cousins. I want to be just as funny as Karen Mills is, but the other difference might be where we started our work and what was expected of us. And that year is Miss North Carolina. I got to make more than 500 speeches in 1 year, and you can't buy that kind of an opportunity. But I couldn't have been going around, and I wouldn't have felt, it wasn't my cup of tea with some of the stories that the comedy clubs were putting out. So there's a different, and when I think humorist, I think Bob Newhart. And I was also watching on TV, Lucy, Don Knotts, and of course the Queen, Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, I saw her show a couple of years ago. She was wonderful.
Fantastic.
But so it was coming along a different path and a different place.
Grizzard.
Huh?
Louis Grizzard.
Louis Grizzard by Newhart. And of course, unfortunately, I say the word unfortunately without having to explain why. One of the best storytellers was Bill Cosby.
Oh, absolutely.
The weaving of a longer story to do a point and that kind of thing. And so that's what I started off doing that year as Miss North Carolina. And then when people asked me to speak, that's kind of what they expected. And comedy clubs had not even, And then in the 70s, every Holiday Inn had a comedy club on the corner, you know. So I just came along a different path, and
And
held over.
with comedy, you know, you're expected to have a punchline every like 11 seconds or something. There's a formula to it, but it's something like every 11 seconds.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so in a comedy club, I found that if I go to an event that I'm speaking at and I'm funny, I mean, it kills. But
Yes.
if I'm in a comedy club and I take longer than the audience because the expectation is
They
different.
get restless.
Yeah, it's a different expectation. So
And the other thing is, and although I'm much older than you, I don't think this is my age, it's just me. But if you're not doing well in a comedy club, you can throw out a 4-letter word and they laugh.
yeah.
You know, I mean, they just laugh. And for the speaker, you're going, what was that about? That wasn't funny. Why did she get away with that? Or he get away with that? I'm not down. I love to go to comedy clubs. I was in these casinos to speak and heard for a convention and heard that you were on downstairs. I got a ticket and went, buddy. I love to watch comedians work. And, but it's a quicker punchline. And if you're right, my story, the baton story that I tell, that was for years, they would say in NSA, this is Jeannie's signature story, 17 minutes long. And the clip you were going to play, interestingly enough, Don't Send a Man to the Grocery Store.
So hilarious.
It really doesn't have 15 million yet, but it's at 13. And that story that was 7 minutes and 52 seconds, as I said, is now 14 minutes. You know, people are funny. If you take time to talk to them after our shows, that's where you get you. And more people say to me, if it's true about that grocery store, how does it grow? You know, you say something funny one night and they laugh and you think, that's not in there. I'll leave it in.
I'll leave it
And
in.
then as the years go on, the stories get longer and longer. And of course, we always say in professional speaking, and I expect you say in comedy, we get better, but the films of those stories never do. So you want to, the longer you tell, haven't you taped a story before, Karen, and the next week added something and thought, oh, I've already taped the story, now it's not in there.
So many times.
Where do you find most of yours? Like I, just looking around and waiting for it to happen?
And for me, you know, it's life experience, just like you. I mean, it's some is observational. There's things I observe that will make its way into my show. But usually, like I do almost 15 minutes on cancer.
Yeah.
You know, I find humor is my coping skill, number one. And so I find humor in the bad as well as the good. And so whatever happens to me is reflected in my comedy.
Well, and I think that you can do that. When I was approached to do theater shows after doing conventions for all those years, I said, well, now who's going to come? He's, you know, and they said, just walk out there and be funny. And I was so ingrained as being a speaker, I could not do that. I had to have a little point. But whereas the audience might not want a professional speech, I wouldn't want to have dinner on a Saturday night and then pay the big tickets and go to a theater to hear a speech that I could have heard at work on Thursday or something like that. But they will accept a little reminder, such as simple as look for the humor that's around us to get you through stressful situations.
And it could never be more applicable than just right now.
It does. It can't solve our problems, but it gets us through. I don't know if you know it, but this is not in any way to compare what happened to you and with your struggle, and you look fantastic. But three and a half years ago, I fell and broke my femur straight across the knee. And then for 3 months, we had to postpone. We don't use the word cancel. We use the word postpone our speeches and so what we did was, and the humorists can get away with this, we renamed the theater tour the Rocking Chair Tour. And I just got out on stage somehow and sat down in a rocking chair, and then we give the chair away at the end of the show. So if you can take the situation and they can see you doing that, and they saw you doing that with what happened to you, you really are showing them that you practice what you preach.
Right. Good point. And and I do remember when that happened. And how are you doing, by the way?
Oh, it's fine.
It's fine.
I'm doing so well. I think I'm going to break my other leg and stay in the rocking chair as long as I can. So, we just, it's just part of what we do. And I know during the virus, the thing is, this is not a funny thing. No, it's not a funny thing at all. Neither is having cancer, neither is being in the hospital so long, even at having your spouse pass away, whatever it is. But the same thing, it can, if we can look for humor, it'll let us help us get through it.
Absolutely does. And, there's one difference between a humorist and a stand-up comedian. A humorist can sit in a rocking chair, where one of the two requirements of a stand-up comedian is to stand up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I've always stood up. And now I'm beginning to think, at my age, this is not bad. This is not bad. And what I've had some audience people say is, we settled in and you stayed in one place, and before you were moving all around the stage, moving all around the stage. And I thought, well, not too much, was it? But I see the point. You just do what brung you, and then you adjust when you have to.
That's right.
And the story that you were going to tell to Summit, for the people that just haven't seen it and don't even have any idea what we're talking about. Don't send a man to the grocery store. I did not even put that up on YouTube.
That's what I wanted you to tell that story at. Tell that story now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, whatever you want. Did you get the clip? We don't need it, but it's a story about sending my husband to the grocery store because I'm trying to make some sort of a cake. And the one thing, you write your own material, but I sometimes I listen to you and I say, darn, I could have written that, but of course I didn't. So it's your story. And that's what I feel like you just don't know, how long it takes to perfect a story. You tell it for years and you finally tape it and then it gets better the next week, those kind of things. But I came in one afternoon and we had taped a new tape the day before and we were tired. Those things wear you out. Mm-hmm. And my assistant, Tony, of 42 years now, Tony Meredith, you've talked to her.
Yes, I know Tony.
Came in and she said, well, you're going to be upset. You want to sit down and hear this bad news, or do you what? And I said, well, the camera wasn't running when we were filming last night. No, the camera's fine. Forget the new tape. She said, I just had a call from Ralph Hood. He's a speaker in Virginia. And he said that in the last 30 or 40 minutes, 3 people have called him from around the country and said that somebody is Jeannie's grocery store story about sending your husband to the grocery store is on YouTube. And actually it was up with the audio version. And of course, being a person who writes her own material, my first response might have been close to yours. I said, and who's telling it? I know all the women, who's telling? And they said, that's the funny part, Jeannie. It's you on your audio cassette, but there's no picture. It's not video. And they've changed the name of it. And I said, change the name? But it's you telling your story, but they changed the name from Left Brain's Grocery List to Don't Send a Man to the Grocery Store. And the catch is that I was marketing to people who had heard me speak, and they would therefore see Left Brain's Grocery Store. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm thinking, then they would say, we have to have that DVD or CD because we love that story. I was forgetting the people who hadn't heard the story. So when I saw that this had happened for 1 month, it went viral on audio. I had like 1 million hits on audio, and we still were so busy in our little at-home, offices. One afternoon, I got a call from a guy named David Vaughn. He was in the University of North Carolina at Greensboro's provost office. And he called and he said, Jeannie, we are laughing over here. This is the funniest thing. We are playing this audio over and over. And my assistant, Tony, said when he hung up, boy, they'd really like it if they could see it. Duh. We put it up the next day. We didn't even think about putting it. This was how long. And it put up, and of course, then it went viral. But the comments that people gave, because it involves a cake recipe. And it just changed my whole life and took me out of just speaking, which I love and still do, right, to theater work, because now people will buy the tickets. And I have to tell you, everybody's, it took on a life of its own. And we went back and looked at all the titles of my stories, and we renamed a bunch of them to be a little more appealing. And I was just putting a blah title out, but we started changing them. Then, if you've got time, I'll tell you, I got a call from, it's a story about a pound cake story, about trying to cook a pound cake. And I got a call from Taste of the South magazine out of Birmingham. Hoffman Media has like 10 magazines. And this is a slick, glossy, nice magazine. And they wanted to do a story on the pound cake story.
A story on the story.
Oh, yeah. And so then they put pound cakes on the front, and they put Left Brain's pound cake recipe and my pound cake. And it was a big deal. And then they said, we have to put it in a test kitchen. And I'm thinking, well, oh me, did I change? It's going to blow up on them. So then it came out in this nice magazine across the South. So before long, being in a small town in the South, I got a call from my local paper. And they said, we want to do a story about the Taste of the South magazine doing a story about the pound cake story. And I said, well, sure. And I started chuckling to myself. And I said, give me a couple of days. I needed a couple of days to find something in my office. And when she came, I had hidden this something under the table. And we were sitting there and we discussed how it had just gone. And finally, she said, folding her tablet, she said, you know, Jeannie, I see that you give a copy of the recipes at every speech. I said, if I tell the story, I hand out the recipe. You get your name and address out there and all that. But she said, a lot of people folding up that tab. A lot of people will not give away a family recipe. And I said, I know that, but, and I reached under my table and pulled out a 25-year-old newspaper. And I said, I got that recipe out of your paper 25 years ago. So it's not a family recipe at all. So, and people come up afterwards. There's a place in the story where I have involved shortening, you know, one of the recipes, Crisco, lard. I had these two young women in their 30s, married, had big diamonds on and everything, all dressed to the hilt after the show, and said, we just love that pound cake story. Do you mind if we ask you a question about it? And I said, no, sure, what? And they said, what is shortening? I swear, I said, no. So the stories go on with the stories, and anyone you put out. Bungee jumping has like 6.5 million. I mean, it's just fun to have this avenue to put our work out there. Well, you have, how many, you put up a lot of YouTube clips.
They don't have anywhere close to what you have, I believe.
But you're not anywhere as old as I am either. So we have 74 YouTube clips up, and we have like 140 or 50 on where you download them. Can't even think. She get her off the stage, iTunes. So I just love to write humor, and it's abounding now. And I love that you're doing this show and interviewing funny people.
Well, let me just say to anyone watching that has not seen, Don't Send a Man to the Grocery Store, go to Jeannie's YouTube page, and you can see that along with all of her other clips, and you will die. And I guarantee you'll know someone that it will be relatable for. I mean, my brother called me and he said, have you seen that Jeanne Robertson clip? Never seen it. Because my sister-in-law sent him to the grocery store before.
Oh,
one time she wanted a carton of of eggs, and she meant, you know, the carton of like egg beaters, and he came with eggs.
I know.
And I wanted the ones in the carton, and he said, well, don't they all come in a carton?
Of course. Well, nowadays, of course, when they go to the grocery store, they take their camera and take pictures, and it just gets worse. I mean, they say, is this what you want? And put the camera. I'll see it in the grocery store when I put it. Of course, I try not to go anymore much, is because I don't cook, but at all. So it's just fun. I love to write stories, and like now I have a book coming out in about 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for this excellent time. And you didn't even know it. It's called Don't Bungee Jump Naked and Other Important Stuff. So it's not a John Grisham. It's not a novel that you're going to, but it's just a fun book.
It's fun. And
it is fun. What's your next thing you're going to be doing? I know you're knocking the theater shows out.
Oh, it changes weekly.
That's what I heard.
No, well, I'm working on it, Jeannie. I'm out there working on it, always trying to put out new material and, sell some tickets. So, yeah, but everything keeps getting pushed. All my
Yeah.
stuff now has been pushed to the fall. And,
Our world's changed in March,
I know.
but they did for everybody. So, I mean, I can't complain. I just hope that everybody that's happened to is trying to write new material. And that's what we're doing, trying to do here.
Well, you know that of all your stories, and they're all wonderful, the one that makes me laugh so hard because I relate to it so much is we're not gun people, we're broom people. My whole childhood, my mother would say, "Get the broom."
Get the broom right now. I have to tell you the follow-up. Of course, we got the bat out of the house. I mean, Jerry we called it Jerry, of course, left brain. He would take the broom and beat the bat. And I know there are people that would shoot it, get your gun out, shoot a hole in your ceiling. But we're, as I said, or as you said, we're broom people. We had the broom and he would beat it and it would ball up and it would be there. And then it would start to unfurl because they can do that. And then he kept doing it again. And finally we said, I think you can get it outside. And I said, put it in the trash can. Go put it in the trash can. Well, of course, as I told it the next several days, people said, you've got to call Raleigh, the state capital. If you had a bat in your house, it could be rabid. It could be rabid. You got to call Raleigh. So I started worrying about it. And left brain wasn't even at home, but I had called the state and they said, oh, we need to come right away. We'll send some people. And these guys came in practically in hazmat suits and gloves and everything. And I said, he took it down and he threw it in that big trash can over there. Well, like everywhere, our trash cans are the size of small automobiles.
Right.
Given the man got in and he looked and he took out everything for like 3 days out of the garbage with gloved hands, and I'm watching him and he's going further, and before long he's practically upside down in the trash can, pulling it over to the side looking, and left brain pulled in the driveway, Karen. And when he said, what's going on? And I told him and he just drained. And I said, you didn't put it in the trash. And he said, no, I just came to the door and slung it toward the Hills yard. And I said, now you tell me right now, Karen, would you at that point with this man toward the bottom of your trash can go tell him it's not in there or just let him finish? Now tell the truth. What would you do? I probably let him finish. I felt so bad. And he said, it's probably unfurled and it's rolled away. Don't worry about it. I said, so things happen after the stories that even make them more fun. I think. We are. Now, there's another thing you and I have. Didn't you play basketball in college?
I did.
Well, I didn't because Title IX had not been passed. but I played what they had, and I played high school, and I loved basketball, and I coached a few years.
And you were how tall?
I was at that time 6'2", but I'm shrinking. I'm shrinking. Pour water on me, I'm shrinking. But I was 6'2" at that time. The game was nothing like it was right now. And I mean, you could jump this big, you had it made. You played in Chattanooga or Georgia?
I did. I played at UT Chattanooga. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Good school.
Yeah.
So I was a PE major. So health, physical education, and recreation.
Oh, so was I. That was my major.
And look at us now.
Yeah, look at us now. I never thought a day.
When was your first time to be on stage and be funny?
Well, I even in high school, because I played basketball and it was such a commitment, I couldn't be in plays, but I would always, the drama teacher would always hold a little place for me once the play started that didn't require a lead or anything like that. Not that I could sing anyway, I couldn't have done that, but I would always go be something in it. Or in drama class, I would do
cameo. You had cameos built in high school.
That's right. They were small. I might be an Indian that did a flip off of something, but and Annie, get your gun, or something like that. But it was just
fantastic.
Yeah. But then when I got to college, we had this thing called Meet the Mocks, and it was the booster club to introduce all the the girls on the basketball team and all the sports to the Booster Club. Well, every year I would write something to introduce them. One year we did a take on Saturday Night Live, and I had cast everybody and written something for them, and it was so funny. And
Love it.
Oh, it was. And one girl was supposed to, you know what a medicine ball is? A big
Yeah.
old,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, right. So we'd built a Mr. Bill, and we'd told the girl that was going to go, because she's like, let me play. Oh, I want to play. And so she was going to pass the medicine ball to him, and it's going to flatten him out. So you remember Mr. Bill on Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, she threw the medicine ball, and what we said, whatever you do, throw it low. So if you miss him, it'll hit the floor first and roll over him.
Okay.
Well, she threw it high, and it went over Mr. Bill's head. But then she had the greatest comeback. She goes, I knew you wouldn't catch it. And she smashed it.
So you wrote these for the Lady Moccasins, and then
Yeah, so we did this whole sketch series, and so I was always involved. And this is interesting because after that one, because it was really funny, everyone's part was, and a gentleman came up to me. He was probably in his 80s, and he said, what are you going to do when you finish college? And I said, well, I plan, I guess I'm going to coach. My degree's in health and physical education, and I'm going to coach. It was almost a default choice. That's what everyone expected of me. So I said, so I guess that's what I'll do. And he goes, you really need to rethink this. This is your gift. He said, this is your gift.
comedy.
Yeah. And so I always remembered that. He was much wiser than I was, and much wiser than anyone who said, what do you love? What are you really good at? Everyone just assumed you're a good basketball player, you'll be a coach.
Yeah. Good for you. That's fantastic. So then you went the comedy club route. And I didn't.
I moved to Atlanta after college, and I was just trying to find myself. Basketball was over. That was my identity. I was trying to figure out who I was now. And I'd taken some acting classes, but every time I would see Johnny Carson, I thought, and he'd have a comedian on, I would think, I really think I could do that. So finally I went to open mic at the Punchline, and and the manager told me, he said, you have the timing, and I really think, and you could do this for a living, but you have to learn to write your own material. Because all I knew to do was tell a joke. So I took a class, and I went back, and he hired me, and then I never looked back.
The year I was Miss North Carolina, you won on a Saturday, and by Tuesday you were somewhere speaking. And my daddy said, you got to say something funny. And he told me something funny to say in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I did. But that year, then I pulled out 3 or 4 jokes from joke books, old joke books. And I told them, well, you could say, blow a horn in my bedroom, and I would sit up in the bed, and I could do those 4 stories today, oldest jokes in the world. And then I realized about halfway through the year, they really liked those stories, but they had heard them, I'm sure. But they really liked it when I talked about being a 6'2" basketball player in the Miss America pageant, or as we say, the Miss America pageant. But then I began to think they like that true stuff, stretched, albeit stretched, but they like that better than just the jokes. So when the year was over, I probably concentrated more on writing new material then.
Well, I'm always so impressed with how many stories you put out. I mean, you always have new material.
I have a little system that works for me. It doesn't work for others, I'm sure. But remember, when you and I go, we've got to be funny. A lot of speakers are great speakers. They can throw in a story or two to illustrate a point. I write a funny story, and then I say, now, what point could that illustrate? Because I'm really, the most important thing is to me to have them laughing. And that's what I'm hired to do. Right. So that's what I do. But so the true stories, it means that the person, if you tell your own stories, and I just push for this all the time, if you tell your own stories, no one is sitting in the audience who came in late and hearing you and leaning to the person next to them and say, did this happen to her? And they say, no, it happened to somebody else. She's just telling us about it. it takes away all the excitement for that person if they know it's really happened to you. And of course stretched, of course stretched. But you took the one I talked about, those twins in the movie that were about, and that's the funniest thing. I had to pull off the road, and then I began to follow you. And the thing about hitting him in your mama, don't hit you in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Because Southern, it's gonna hit you in the head. It's just the way we are. And do people come up to you all the time and they say to me, I don't know if you didn't use anything like this, but you need to do a routine on bless your heart. And I say, everybody does. And if we can do stories that aren't like everybody else's, we come out ahead. We're having a good time right now with it during the being home. And I do Saturday, I do a Facebook Live every Saturday. And we draw, we give away prizes. I mean, anything we can think of doing after 8.5 weeks. But people are home. And so we got to keep them engaged. This is a great idea for you to have this. And who are the people that you like the best in our business? Of course, I consider myself a humorist, but we're both out there making themselves laugh.
That's right.
Who do you really think are the best?
The best comedians?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's always a tough one for me because, people who influence me, like you said, Carol Burnett and all those people. And then there's comics out there that I really love their work. Kathleen Madigan, I think is hilarious.
We swap clothes. She's this big.
And Leanne Morgan's a friend of mine. She's doing great now. She's a great storyteller and she's so funny. And then Dennis, not Dennis, that's his brother, Brian Regan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so funny. And what I love about Brian is no one could tell his story. I mean, it's a lot like you. No one can take your material because the way you tell it is as funny as the story. So it's very specific.
Plus, I have a machete. So you do too. There's so many good people. I think sometime when I listen to Sirius XM at radio or comedy shows and go to the National Speakers Conventions, I know I learn as much about what not to do sometimes as I do what to do. Because I'll sit there and think, now that's a funny line. Why did that not go over for her? And it could be she's moved herself out of the light. You can't see her. I mean, so you can always learn and get better. And by listening to the others, it really helps me to listen to others. You don't want their stories, but it just helps you realize, I think I've fallen into that habit too. That kind of thing.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
What I think I knew anyway is write your own material.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember, this is going to be terrible. When I started, the audio cassette had not been invented. The audio cassette had not been invented. You had nothing like this. You had no cell phones. You didn't anything like that. And so you didn't hear, I think it turned out to be a big advantage for me. You didn't hear all the other people. Because this happens in speaking, and I'm sure in comedy too. Well, I hear a lot of people that try to mimic Jeff Foxworthy, or try to, I can pick a place. We have a speaker in speaking named Patricia Fripp, and she's from England, and she talks about an organization. And, we have a generation of speakers behind her from California who sound like Patricia Fripp. They're not intentionally trying to copy Patricia. It's just that's all. They listened to her cassette so much, she began to pick up her mannerisms. We had a lady named Lola Gillipard, and she and her husband, Hank, came to our house one night for dinner. And she called me one time and she said, Janie. And I said, Lola? She, yes, this is Lola Gillipard from North Carolina. But I live out here in San Francisco, and I went to the San Francisco NSA, National Speakers Association chapter, and I did a program, and people all came up to me when it was over and said, you've got to trying to copy Jeanne Robertson. And I said, she said, what do you think about? And I said, did you tell my stuff? She said, no, I told my stuff. And I said, where are you? Did you say you're from? She said, Roanoke Rapids. It took about 8 syllables. Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. I said, tell them we all talk like this in North Carolina. You're not copy. So you have to allow for the fact that there are people that say, you remind me of Karen Mills. You remind me of Jeanne Robertson. Wow. But you don't get up and do their thing. One time I had to speak at NSA and I got 5 women speakers together. And I said, teach me how to imitate you. And they, because I just don't do imitations. I don't know what I do. It comes out Southern.
Right.
But the 5 women themselves, Patricia Fripp, Naomi Rhodey, Rosita Perez, all these great women speakers were all different accents. And they said, let me just teach you 2 or 3 lines of my material where my accent really comes out. And I worked and I worked and I worked. And I got on stage and I blew them away. Because I really, and the whole bit lasted 3 or 4 minutes. But the closing was, just because we can do somebody else's material doesn't give us the right to. Because I nailed them. You know, what kind of music, please, you think I'm going to play for you? You know, this kind of stuff. And that's not the way I talk. So I think the fun of it is writing your own material. I really do.
I agree. There's nothing more rewarding to me than for something I've written to break up an audience. I mean, there's nothing better.
And what's your favorite of your pieces of material? They're like children to me. I just, Well,
you know, I feel like Nell, the one about the movie Nell, is one. It's one that I kind of stopped doing for a long time because I felt like that's dated. That movie's old. It makes me look like I'm not writing anything new. I'm going to let that go. So I'm working in Birmingham, Alabama, and I get off stage and I am accosted in the parking lot by a lady that goes, I brought 15 people here to see you do Nail, and you didn't do it.
You didn't do Nail. No,
Right.
When I wrote, that's one I said, I could have written that. But I did. I mean, it never occurred to me to do that. But that people get very upset. And I can go to repeat a theater show, and I bet you can too. And when we were here last time, you were here too, you know, we thought it was great. And I said, well, what do you remember me telling you? Well, I can't remember. But if you tell it, they turn and say, she did that same stuff when she was. Yeah. So you just go ahead and try to.
Yeah. And so I'm in the parking lot of the Stardome in Birmingham going, by the time what we learn, they'll be in charge. I do it for them. Because I didn't
get arrested today. You would get arrested. So she said, foreign tongue. We don't know where she's from, that kind of thing. But they're like your little children and they grow. I told the baton story so much. It started in the early 70s when it happened in Eastern North Carolina. And then I worked on it and it stretched. And now 17 minutes. I told it that I could push it on go. But you get about 13 minutes, you can't get out of it. You got to go to the end. So I decided that I would tape it for Kentucky Public Television and put it on sabbatical, not tell it. And I announced to my friends who would hold me to it, I said, I'm not telling it for a year because it took up 17 minutes of a 30-minute speech.
Oh, yeah.
And I found myself wanting to hand out those baton cards. And so I would work it in when I probably shouldn't have been telling it. So I said, I'm not telling it for a year. And it stretched into 5. And right then is when I realized the newer material, the old material is good, but the newer material keeps me fresher. And when the first time I told it, the woman had heard it and she said, I want you to tell that baton. And I said, well, I'm not currently telling that. And her look on her face was like, excuse me, we hired you to come and tell that baton story. So I had to get in the room after 5 years and walk around the room trying to get through 17 minutes. I mean, I thought, I can't tell this thing. I got to make sure that I can remember this story to tell it. But I think it just keeps us fresh to have to do it. And then if I go back and do the 4th show, say I can do first show, second show, 3rd show in the theater, the 4th show back, I tell the baton story. They just love it. They think it's new. It's not new.
The bit that I get comments on the most, I mean, people will roll down their window and yell, "Don't get knocked in the head." So
I
I get
know it.
more comments about knocked in the head than anything.
Well, that's a great piece of material, Karen. One of your many. It's a good
Oh, my
piece.
mother has and continues to supply me with plenty of material.
Well, and what I did, and this I've tried to tell, it's just strange. I didn't realize I was doing it, but I developed a cast of characters. I don't do them. I don't jump into characters. I mean, I just have a cast. But if I don't tell a story on Left Brain, Tony, my assistant, Norma Rose, my Southern friend, Jane Tucker from New York City, or my son Beaver, they say, "What's happened? Tony doesn't work for you anymore?" I said, 42 years? Are you kidding? But they have become a little cat. And since I didn't have any famous people to put quotes on my book, I let my friend, the cast of characters, give me my quotes on my book. I just realized. And so now if I'm with Norma Rose, I am actually searching for what she's going to do to get smug. And now they come up to me and say, I've done something I think you in your little program. And my sister finally said to me one day, "You don't ever tell a story about me." And I said, "No, I'm working on it, Catherine. I'm working." She said, "Well, if you have something funny and nobody wants you to use it, just tell them it happened on me, but just tell one on me." I said, "Just lie." And she said, "You're not above it." I said, "No, I'm not." We're just lucky to do what we do. Don't you think? I'm just so happy every time to be able to make people laugh, and fam, and I can select words sometimes that give a little bit of a tiny double meaning. You know, I don't say Left Brain woke up in the middle of the night in the tent. I use the word Left Brain got, and he got frisky. You know, well, frisky, you can pass with frisky.
Right.
You know?
Yes, you can. You can pass with any
word. So that your mama, you can bring I always say you can bring your mama or your teenagers with you, but I'm not what people would call a Christian comedian.
No.
I'm a Christian. That's not the point.
Right.
I want everybody to come to my shows. And if you call yourself that too much, people will think it's going to be a church service.
Right.
Got to get them in the door to get them.
Well, I also want to ask you, what was your talent when you did?
Oh, it was pitiful. It was pitiful. It was pitiful. In the Miss America pageant, I played the ukulele and I sang original song. And I thought the original would carry me.
What must have?
I knew 4 chords. Everybody was playing the ukulele back then. I knew 4 chords. And of course, I have to tell you what I wanted to do, and you've set me up and don't even know it for a great piece of material, short piece of material. I begged to shoot hook shots for my talent in the Miss America pageant. And my father in Little Graham, North Carolina said, "You let us bring a portable basketball goal to Atlantic City, New Jersey in our truck. We got sandbags. We put the thing on stage, and you let my daughter come out for 3 minutes. That's how much time you used to get for your talent. 3 minutes. She will hook left-handed, shoot hook shots right-handed. And if she hits them all, you better name her Miss America. And if she misses them, we'll take our goal and the ball and the sandbag things, and we will go home." And they told me that shooting hook shots was not talent. You're a player. And that let me know that they didn't know what a hook shot was. Well, I've judged at the Miss America 3 times, and I'm now older and I'm smarter and I understand these things. Karen, they were afraid I would win. The headline would have said, "Hooker wins." You set me up and didn't even know it. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great story, though. I can't believe that. And today you could probably be a humorist as a talent, but back then,
but you only get about 40 seconds.
Oh,
so if you sing opera, you go, "Whoa!"
Oh yeah,
it'd be kind of hard to develop a routine in 40 seconds.
Yeah,
3 minutes would have been fun. It would have been a lot of fun. So,
true.
but it's pageants take a lot of criticism, and some of it's justified. But what the opportunity it gave me, to make all those speeches, and I crowned the next Miss North Carolina. She was a tiny little thing. I just put the and then the following week spoke at 3 state conventions, and I just never looked back.
And prior to being in the pageant, did you think you wanted to be a humorist or a speaker, or were you thinking?
I had been speaking at Auburn around, and you've got things like fountain pens or a pennant or a little Auburn t-shirt at the time. Yeah. And I had my little ukulele. I was just singing songs because anybody needs a free program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got to have a program.
Right.
And so I just, and then when they said to me right away, you got to give a speech Tuesday. And I said to my daddy, I have to give a speech Tuesday. And he said, where are you going? And I said, Fayetteville. And then I just keep going for the year. And he said, well, I can tell you what you can say in Fayetteville. That's the way to the beach. I never went through Fayetteville that I can get a speeding ticket. That's how they raise their taxes.
Yeah.
And I said that in the banquet, and it brought the house down. And I said, I like that. So away we went. You know, I wasn't nothing is better than working on a piece of material and having it come out.
Having it work. I know, I agree.
And you know what we've been doing in this is I have a friend, Patrick Henry. His mother is Tony, my assistant, and his daddy was a professional speaker. And Patrick's a professional speaker. He's a humorist and everything.
I know, I hear him on XM radio, but
yes. Well, he can bring his cell phone over. So we started cutting them 3 or 4 weeks ago, little 1 and 2 minute YouTube clips, quick YouTube clips about the virus, and put them on. And
don't waste the
quarantine. Stories, huh?
Don't waste the quarantine.
Don't waste the quarantine. And we, you know, after the Saturday Facebook Live I do, then when he's here with the camera, I mean the cell phone, we just do it on the cell phone. And people just need to laugh right now. If they turn on the news, any channel is the same mess. But they really like to laugh. And don't you? I know you get letters from people who say, I was depressed about things, and hearing you made me feel good, and that makes you feel so good.
Sure, of course, absolutely does.
May I ask you, when you don't travel, which this is always a joke to me when they say, in your spare time, oh, well, I sew and do things. No, I don't. What do you like to do to get you away from writing the material and traveling?
Oh, I waller dogs.
Waller dogs?
I'm always wrestling a dog. Yeah, I love
Wait a minute, is this a word I didn't learn in Graham?
You know, wallow. It's
I did not know this
take on wallow.
Waller? Oh, no, I'm learning. What do you do when you wallow a dog? I'm scared to ask.
Wrestle a dog. You know.
Okay, we have to do that with children.
Yeah, you waller children.
What kind of dog do you have, Karen?
I have.
What kind of dog?
Well, at one time I had 4. They're all rescues. They find me, and but my 2 old men, they passed in October, both of them like 3 weeks apart. And now I have a little Chihuahua, and I have a Terrier mix, who is
little bitty dog.
Yeah, so I love animals. I also have a friend who has she has a farm and has all kinds of critters. I'll go out there once in a while, and I mean, I love animals. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I also love movies. I love, you know, and I always go help my mom and help do things for her. So I stay occupied. I'm as busy now than I am when I'm on the road.
Yeah. I know. I said the same thing. I said, I'm very busy. And they said, but you can't leave your house. I said, well, I haven't paid attention to it for 4 or 5 years. So I'm cleaning up and finding stuff. And you pull out a bodysuit, you pull out the bodysuit story, you know. So it's just fun.
I love the Braves. I love the Atlanta Braves. So I'm a big baseball fan. So I'm really missing my Braves right now.
Oh, yeah.
That's
another. Softball? Did you play softball?
Oh yes, I did. I played my whole life. Yeah.
Well, let me guess. Shortstop.
I did play shortstop most of my life. In my when I played slow pitch, I was shortstop. And then when I went to college, my coach, Sharon Fanning, who was a pitcher, fast pitch pitcher, she goes, slow pitches for fun, fast pitches for athletes. So, because she knew that would get me.
So the
So,
arm has to go all the way around.
yeah,
Is your
windmill.
shoulder sore?
Yeah. So no, I didn't pitch. She pitched, but when I moved to fast pitch softball, I played center field.
Okay. Well, we live within walking distance of Elon University.
Yes.
And the women's softball, because of the Olympics and then all the TV coverage of the Southeastern Conference, Southwestern, all the women, people have really gotten into it.
Yeah.
And they've just built them a brand new women's softball facility and building and everything there at Elon. And so, and when you go, you're sitting like here to there. It's perfect. It's a great sport. And 6 innings is nice.
It is a great sport, but it killed my golf game because I was always leadoff batter, and I batted left-handed, so I'd always hit it down third baseline and just beat it out. And so now I can't play golf because I always pull my head out because I'm running to first, and I've never been able to break that habit. So anyway.
It seems like that would be a habit you could break. Looking over your shoulder. You're looking to see where the ball is.
Well, I was already running for him out of the batter's box.
Of course, we were not allowed to play anything in college before Title IX.
Right.
And I got a call not too long ago from someone with the NCAA, and I had spoken for the NCAA a number of times at a number of events, women's Final Four, men, these kind of things. And so this was a very young man, and he said, I've been asked to update our information on people we've had speak for us in the past. And he said, would you tell me where you played in college and who you played for? And I said, well, I went to Auburn, but I didn't play because Title IX had not been passed. And there was blank. And I said, you don't know what Title IX is, do you? No, ma'am, I don't. I said, go before you call anybody else, go get that information, because we were not allowed to play at that point. But I did. I'm not going to say that was, bad or good or what, but it would have been nice to have a chance to do that.
Of course, yes. It was a huge part of my life. Jeannie, I could talk to you all night, but we're going to have to go. But before we go, can I do some little rapid fire questions with you? Okay. Oh, and one other question I meant to ask you. Did you have a nickname?
High Pockets. Sometimes High Pockets, they would call me. High Pockets.
High
But
Pockets.
I never, our son's nickname is Beaver, like a rodent. And everybody picks up these nicknames. I didn't really have that. So we always give our little girls in the South 2 names in case they want to be in a pageant. For some reason, it seems to help, like props on the stage. And so I am still, people call to this day, 56 years later, and will say to my assistant, Tony, says, I can't believe that. They want to know, is this where Jeannie Flynn Swanner works? Is this her office? And I said, I can't believe people did that. That's how big pageants were a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like American Idol that everybody watched, but we only had 3 channels, 3 networks. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Do you drink your tea sweet or unsweet?
Sweet.
You prefer?
They can be unsweetened tea. How do they get the sugar out? Okay, sweet.
Do you prefer cake or pie?
Pie.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person.
Do you ask for forgiveness or do you ask for permission?
Depends on if I got caught. Either way.
Okay, these are first and favorites. What was your first concert?
Oh. And so you're talking about concerts, theater shows?
That you attended, not that you did.
Ferrante and Teicher.
Who?
Ferrante and Teicher.
I don't even know them.
Tell me that there is someone who was listening to this show that when we went to Greensboro to see Ferrani, and we'd never been to a concert. So we liked so much that we went back several months later to see Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Oh, no, no,
I'm 70, almost 77. What did you think my first was Billy Joel? What was your first? What was your first one?
My first one was Elvis.
Oh, wow.
My brother got tickets for my 16th birthday and took me to see Elvis because we were big fans. And
Oh, yeah.
and another friend of mine went also. And when we were there and we had great seats, and I think we went to Huntsville, and and me and my friend are going, we love Elvis, but we're not going to start screaming and acting crazy the way these other women do. I mean, we like him, but we're not going to be ridiculous. But the buildup of him coming out and the Space Odyssey and the lights, by the time he came out on stage, we were screaming and fighting over the binoculars. It was it was
Have you
crazy.
ever been up in Ohio at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I haven't been.
We sat through it. It shows him when he comes off the stage, a neck, something went around his neck. They did this, they did that. And then they came walking out and says, Elvis has left the building. I mean, the way they brought him in the same way and out, it was something else, but I was way before Elvis.
Peter, Paul, and Mary, I love them.
Peter, Paul, and Mary, and you don't know who Ferrante and Tasha are.
I'll
find it out.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll find it out. Yeah, okay. What was your first car?
A Cadillac with Miss North Carolina written on the side, not a convertible with Miss North Carolina written on the side, but let me tell you about that. You crown the next contestant, you give them the keys. It's all over, you walk off the stage. And at that point, my daddy had arranged for me to have my own car, which was a Valiant. Do you remember a Valiant?
I remember that.
Car. She said, "I get back to Auburn somehow, I got to have a car."
My
It was
first
a big come down, big convertible, and been sitting on the back of it all year, waving at people, and then said, "Don't. When you leave tonight, don't forget to give us the keys to the car."
What was your first job? Not speaking job, just your first job.
Working at the Alamance News weekly paper writing a weekly column for the high school. My idea, and I chased down the publisher on the paper, and I had on a cheerleader uniform. I went to a small school. Can you imagine 6'2" being thrown in the air cheerleading today? And I said, "Sir, I wish I could write a high school column for your paper every week." And he looked at me up and down, and he said, "Write me a feature story on the cheerleaders and have it in by Wednesday." And I worked, and then I got it, and I worked in the summers.
Oh, that's great. So you were writing even then, you were writing.
Yes, yeah. I loved it. And I also, then from that, I worked in the Graham swimming pool when it opened. We didn't have one, and when it opened, I had gotten my name on the list. So I worked there. I was a lifeguard, water safety instructor, trainer. PE major, you know.
Very athletic.
What's the next question?
You're very athletic.
I'm tall.
Okay, what's your favorite quote or saying?
Keep laughing.
Fantastic. And what's your favorite comfort food?
Zach's hot dogs in Burlington will be tough to meet. You said that. Pimento cheese, Stan's pimento cheese lathered on bread. Country tomatoes, I like to let them be there long enough to slice, but sometimes I take the top off, put on salt and pepper, and eat the whole tomato just as fast as I can.
Oh,
if you can get those kind of things. I don't cook.
You like fried green tomatoes?
I like fried green tomatoes, but I like them just on some Duke's mayonnaise and salt and pepper and that kind of stuff.
I'm with you. Yeah. Okay, your favorite movie?
The Steam.
Oh, wow.
Paul Newman and
yes.
What's his face?
Great movie.
What was the other one? They're both too short. Paul Newman and Robert Redford.
Yeah, Robert
But
Redford.
you gotta watch The Steam from the absolute beginning and don't get up and leave the room, because it all is like a woven story. It all comes tumbling in the last scene, and you think, they tricked me. They did that way back there and set that up. And it's just you should watch, but you got to watch it. You could run, get some more popcorn and not understand something important in the last scene. It's that good.
I saw it years ago, but I should
Yeah.
rewatch it because I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch the setups. You know, the comedians call them setups or y'all call them callbacks. And I call them setups. I like to drop little things in the beginning of a story, or maybe the last story an hour later, they go, and it was tagging off of something I said in the opening.
Oh yeah,
I love that. I
that,
just
yeah.
love it. So
Yeah. And it'll get a huge laugh for what it was earlier, and it's a great way to
yeah.
pepper
You,
more
men-
laughs.
you mentioned earlier that you mentioned earlier the comedian has to have a lot of laughs and the longer story, and of course that last laugh should be the biggest.
Sure.
Of course. But there was a guy named John Palmer from up in Chicago when he booked speakers, and he would sit in the back of the room. He was not a funny person, but he had an up and down. And he said, I don't care how long the story goes, I care which way it went. And it should always, you could in the middle of the story go up and then you come back down and then up again. So a 17-minute story could have 15 or 20 laughs in it.
Sure.
And the last one, but I do think the comedians go more bada bing. Bada bing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's the venue. When you're in a comedy club, you have a less attention span. And
hello, New York. Hello, every comedian. Hello. I love comedians. I really do love to go, but it's not where I cut my teeth. So I'm for it.
Well, and people will break off into groups if you don't keep them just like,
you just made me have a rivet through my body at the thought of them cutting off. And that's why when we start back at these with theater shows after the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're saying maybe we can have like a third of the audience full. But we'll have to do whatever that gets us back into it. But the empty. And I'll tell you another thing you'll find. This from theater shows. They'll tell you that it's sold out, and it is. And you walk out on stage, and the first third is empty. The patrons buy them for the year and don't come to every show.
I know. Hey, everybody. I was just talking with Jeanne Robertson, and somehow we got cut off, but I wanted to thank her so much for coming on. She was such a delight, so talented, and I hope she'll come back and talk to us again. My guest next week on Funny Friends is Jamie Daly, who's part of the Grammy Award-winning duo, bluegrass duo, Daly and Vincent. So he is so funny, and he'll be on next Thursday at 2:00. And so sorry we got cut off. Maybe we ran out of time. Maybe there's a limit on how long you can talk on Facebook. I don't know, but I love Jeanne, and I hope to talk to her again. Keep laughing. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.